Hi, I'm Peter Reinhardt, and welcome to the Johnson & Wales International Symposium on Bread. I'm coming to you from the Hance Auditorium in Charlotte, North Carolina, where we've held the last four bread symposiums, and as you can see, there's nobody here but me. And this is where we usually have it. The seats are all empty because this year, thanks to you, the symposium will be presented online, virtually, in our new presentation hall, which is where I will join you in just a minute. Thank you, and thanks for being part of our new virtual Johnson & Wales International Symposium on Bread, presented by Puratos. Welcome again. Throughout the entire symposium, I'll be thanking our generous sponsors over and over again, and ask that you do as well by visiting their booths and pavilions in the exhibitor hall. There you will see lots of bonus content, and you can also make appointments to meet with the folks from these companies that serve our baking community so well. Our presenting sponsor is Puratos, who has partnered with us from the very beginning for all of our symposiums, and it is their support that helped us get this one-of-a-kind gathering of thought leaders off the ground. Please also visit our fabulous flour and milling sponsors, Ardent Mills, Lindley Mills, and Central Milling. Thank you also to our equipment sponsors, the WP Bakery Group and Allied Bakery and Food Service Equipment. And thank you also to our specialty food product companies, Probiotine, Fire Within, Big Green Egg, and Mockmill. Please check out all of their booths to learn about their wonderful and unique products. And also thanks to our media sponsors, Cook's Country, The Local Palate, the James Beard Foundation, and the Bread Bakers Guild of America. You'll be hearing more about all of them throughout the entire series of presentations. So again, thank you to all our sponsors. At the end of today's presentation, you will also see our credit scroll thanking all of the people behind the scenes who made this event possible, including our production and technical partner, Ganoid Communications, our creative team at Gumbo Marketing, and the many folks at Johnson & Wales University, our hosts for this, our fourth annual gathering. So stick around if you will. But now it's time to get things rolling with today's presentation, so let's go live. And once again, welcome to the Johnson & Wales International Symposium on Bread, presented by Puratos. And welcome, everybody. We are live now, and thank you once again for joining us. Today is Demo Wednesday. Every Wednesday we have our special, it's really demonstration day, Monday being more of our mental academic day. And we've got some great guests, and I'm going to introduce Harry Peemoeller and Paul LeBeau in just a second. But first, just a couple of announcements, get them out of the way, because I want to give Harry as much time as possible for his demonstration today. So a couple announcements. First of all, next week, remind you that on Monday, we are going to be featuring Charles Luce, who's going to be doing a presentation on the past, present, and future of gluten-free. So this is one of the sessions dedicated to the gluten-free category, and Charles is going to bring us, on the journey from what's gone before and where we're headed. And then on next Wednesday, Chef Alon Shaya will join us. He'll be doing a demonstration on baking bread on the grill, and he'll be making his signature pita areas, which is kind of a fun product that he's been known for, and he'll be showing us how to do that on the grill next week. And then the week after that, we've got Guy Frankel joining us for a whole week for two sessions, Monday and Wednesday. Monday is a presentation, Wednesday is his demo, and I'm not going to say too much about that. You can read all about that and those to come, and I'll be sending out an email this weekend again to everybody, kind of giving you the updates on what's happening. Final announcement is, please, if you can, visit the sponsor booth, sign up, sign the guest book, and if you can sign all the guest books in all 10 of our sponsor booths, that makes you eligible for the spin. And next week, we will spin the dial and give out another 8-inch bread knife. This is the Zwilling Henkel's, what do they call it? Ice. I love this term. They have ice hardened bread knife. So again, when you do go, by the way, and when you sign those books, maybe leave a little note to the sponsors, sharing a little bit about yourself or your interest in their product, and just so that they know that you've been there and they can make contact with you. With that said, I'm going to turn it all over to our presenter, Harry Peemoeller. Chef Peemoeller is a faculty member and my colleague at Johnson & Wales here in Charlotte, an international award-winning baker of all styles, but has competed for Team USA and headed the team a couple of years ago that competed internationally. Does phenomenal bread sculptures, but lately in the last few years has really championed the role of not only milling your own flour, but also working with local farmers, millers, kind of strengthening that farmer-miller-baker collaboration. And Paul LeBeau is with us as well, and he's going to be around to answer questions later about the mill itself that Harry's going to be using today. So Paul, welcome. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for sponsoring today's. Your Mockmill is not only a symposium sponsor, but is sponsoring today's presentation. So I want to thank you so much for doing that for us. And I encourage all of you to lob questions in. I will field the questions if you want to send them in ahead of time, but I'm going to let Harry go forward and kind of give his presentation without stopping for questions unless there's something that needs to be interjected at any point. Otherwise, we'll take those questions at the end of your presentation. All right, so with that said, I'm going to turn the camera over to Chef Harry Peemoeller, who is coming to you from the Johnson & Wales Baking Lab, Lab 254, where both of us spend a lot of our time, especially him. And then Harry, go ahead and take it from here. You're on.
Thank you, Peter. Welcome to the Wednesday edition over here. Thank you for spending this Wednesday afternoon with us over here. And so I have the pleasure and honor to talk a little bit about the Mockmill, about freshly milled flour, or flour as freshly milled as possible, and then also about local flour. So we're trying to do that over here in Johnson & Wales over here, and the Carolinas. We're actually blessed with having so many local mills over here. So much of the grains have been grown very locally. We have Anson Mills, we have Lindley Mill. Richard made a great presentation last Wednesday about the sprouted, and then Carolina ground, of course. So it's really a ton over here. I just remember we had the first bread symposium over here, and Wolfgang Mock, he presented the Mockmill, and he milled oats freshly, and he made that beautiful breakfast cereal that he made, added some fresh fruits, and he had some other items in it, and then some, I think he added some yogurt to it. It was absolutely spectacular. And so he used the Mockmill, and he milled the oats really fresh over there. And once you mill some of the grains fresh in the mill, you have this beautiful aroma, the beautiful nuances of flavors coming through in your breakfast cereal. It's really hard to beat over here. And I had a conversation with Paul and from Mockmill over here, and I asked him if he could leave one mill over here, and he left me a mill over here. That was actually the Mockmill 100 first that I have here. And so the idea with this one is also have the conversation with my students, and I get these beautiful wheat berries and rye berries from Carolina ground, and some of them from Anson Mill. And when I talk to my students sometimes, and I'm telling them, okay, so today we're using whole grain and whole wheat. That already is, it's gonna taste probably dense and not very yummy over here. And whole grains is something that is very abstract. But when I put those berries in the mill over here, and I let them run through and milling them, it was really, it was amazing to see students that usually when I talk about whole wheat and whole grains, not all of course, but sometimes it's, oh, okay, whole wheat, whole grain. got it. But when that flour came out, when the miracle of transforming grains into flour happened over here, and also those flavor nuances went through the room. The students, instead of looking at their telephone and maybe texting, they took pictures of that. It was absolutely spectacular. I asked Paul, please, if you can, I need another mill over here. I need another 200 over here. And it really transformed a lot what we're doing over here, that we capture the imagination and also the attention of the students over there. What is possible? And I think that's the idea of what we want to do here. All right, so that's how my first connection with Mockmill over here, and with Paul in particular. It's always nice to chat, and he has some great ideas, and it's never ending. The quest of what we can do with freshly milled flour, locally sourced. So today's presentation, we have a lot of things prepared, and I hope I get everything in it over here. But the idea is that we really want to see the impact of the freshly milled flour, what that will have. Why are we milling it? What is so important? Do we really have to mill it? Is milling grains freshly, is this really such a big difference maker over here? So that's really what we would like to talk a little bit about it over here. And I would like to start, I think it's really, really important. I'm trying to get to some really good pointers, the benefit of freshly milled grains over here. First of all, every bread, every cake, every baked good that we are baking over here is only as good as the ingredients that you're going to put in it. You're putting mediocre ingredients inside, that's what it will taste, no matter what you're going to do. So I think if you can get your flour as fresh as possible, it can be milled fresh, or get it from your local mill. They will mill it even in 2-pound increments over here. You will see a difference over here. I would like to make a real quick demo over here. So I have basically 2 different kind of flours over here. And so what I would like you, if you want to try, if you really want to try, or thinking about of switching from store-bought whole grains, if you are a home baker and you're not really happy with the bread that you're baking, maybe it's the flour oil. Open up the bag, maybe smell it, and see how fresh it is. So what I usually do is I put flour in a little bowl sometimes, if I cannot see the difference over here. And then you put nice warm water on top over here. And it doesn't have to be boiling over here, because we don't want to pre-gelatinize it. Stir it around over here. And what you're going to do is over here, you're going to have flavor nuances coming out. And the little porridge that you're going to make over here will tell the difference, will tell the story, if you have a nice aroma or not over here. So this is already old flour over here. So I found the old flour that I had. There was a sample one day, I had it stored away, and I found it. So I brought it over here. And this is the same flour, but fresh. I just milled it a few minutes ago. And maybe you can get the camera a little bit closer here. The thing is, Peter, the next thing you have to do is for the next symposium, there has to be an ad for aroma over here, because it's very hard to tell the difference over here. It doesn't look different over here. You cannot really tell the difference, but you, if you're going to be getting a little closer in the smell, it's old, little rancid over here, and here you have these beautiful nuances from freshly milled flour. Now, the flour that we're going to use today, we're going to use rye flour. Okay, so I grew up in Northern Europe, and so rye flour is what's the only thing that grows over there. So that's why I kind of like rye over here. Grew up on a farm, so my father grew rye, a little weak, but mostly rye. So I love that aroma of rye. I love it when it's freshly milled. It reminds me of sitting on the tractor next to my father when he harvests the rye over there. It just gives the memories here. That's what I'm smelling over here. Little spicy notes over here. Just really, really nice here. This is actually flour I got from Carolina Ground. So I have another example over here. The thing is, with the flour, sometimes, especially with rye flour, we are handcuffed of what the mills will send us over here. So it's confusing. It's confusing what you sometimes get if you want to order flour. So first of all, when you buy rye, you can buy the rye berries over here. So I have rye berries over here. These are rye berries that I got from Carolina ground, Renz Abruzzi, Italian rye. And then I have some other ones, and these are German, French rye berries. And they look a little greenish. Renz Abruzzi looks a little bit brownish over here. And I like both of them, but you know, when you bake with that, you can taste a little difference. I'm not saying one tastes better than the other. They taste different in very good ways. So then I'm having, when this gets milled, I'm having flour, whole grain flour. So it's the rye berries have been milled, and that's called pumpernickel. But if you're going to buy pumpernickel flour from 10 different mills, you're going to get 10 different coarsenesses of flour. It's cracked, a little coarser, a little white, lighter. This is actually the whole rye flour that I got from Carolina ground over here. And you see the color is a little different, but the fineness is almost, the coarseness is almost the same. So the thing is, how can you really get the flour that you really want? So that alone to me is a reason to get a mill or talk to the miller and ask the miller to grind the flour to your specifications. And then I have also flour over here, that's the white rye. And the white rye over here is just, it doesn't look like rye anymore over here. There's all the good stuff, the germ has been sifted out over here, you know. And the white rye comes in so many different names: white rye, cream of rye, crema rye, light rye, white rye. Very confusing over here. So if you know your mill and if you always get the same product, you are linked in. But sometimes if you're new to baking, or you open up, you go into a different, you're changing purveyors, you may order one thing and then you get something completely different. Anyway, so you can see the different coarsenesses over here, and now you want to bake with it. I will talk later on why is one maybe a little bit more advantageous to you than the other. So here we go. I'm having now different, the coarser the flour, the less the water will be absorbed. It takes a little bit more time. So if you're going to mix your rye bread, maybe you're making a whole grain, a full corn rye bread, and you're adding your water to it over here. I'm having 100 grams of freshly milled rye flour here, a little coarser, and 100 grams of freshly milled rye flour, finer milled. Okay? So now what you're going to do is you're going to start mixing it together. So if you're going to have a little bit of coarser rye, you're going to have to mix it a little bit longer. So the reason I'm saying that is because maybe your recipe is saying you have to mix it for 10 minutes. But maybe 10 minutes, your rye is not really swelled up enough. Okay? The rye mix is a little bit different than wheat. Usually the pentosanes are important. They are responsible for the water absorption. So I'm going to mix that little coarser variety. Okay. And now I'm going to put it right here. I'm going to make a little snowman with that. I'm going to put it right here. So now you have a finer variety here. And so for me, that would be already an advantage to get a mill, or to get in contact with your mill and talk to the miller and have a very good conversation over here. So same thing over here. So I'm going to go like this. Put this away. So now we're going to make a little snowman. So 100 grams of rye and 100 grams of water. So if I'm going to twist this around, look at this one here. You cannot even do this with whole wheat, because even whole wheat takes more time to absorb moisture. But with rye is different. You know, the pentosanes absorbing water almost like an instant clear gel. So here we go. This is rye too, but the rye is coarser over here. So what's going to happen is with this rye over here is the snowman is melting here. Cannot even put it up over here. So the only thing is now we need to mix the dough a little bit longer, slowly. Okay, in a langsam kneder, in a mixing machine, that's very slowly, and then little by little, you're going to have the water being absorbed. But the thing is, if you get your rye flour from a different mill that has it milled to different specifications, you have maybe bakers in your bake shop that are mixing it, and now the outcome is different. So that just by itself over there, I think it's very good if you have a mill and you can mill it to your specifications, or you are in contact with the miller over here. So what I'm gonna do today, I'm gonna bake two different breads, two different rye breads, 100% rye, and but different kind of milling specifications. So we're gonna use the Mockmill 200. I'm gonna take this off because I wanna use this for mixing. And of course, you can use this for any kind of other grains as well. I had an email yesterday already. Somebody was talking about some whole wheat varieties, and you can certainly do that with wheat.
Hey, Harry, before you start milling, the Mockmill 200 that you took off of the mixer, can you hold that, because we didn't get to talk about that, the one that attaches to KitchenAid or something like that, so that people can see the difference between that model and the tabletop model. So
right. Yes. So this Mockmill over here is basically you're gonna connect it through your KitchenAid, and you're putting your grains inside and milling them out over here, you know. So what we're gonna do over here, you have the setting over here where you're setting it from fine all the way on top to the little coarser over here, and then I have a little spout over here. The spout is right here. The spout gets added to the connector over here, and what's going to happen is it comes out over here, right here. So now what you're going to do over here, you're going to this is connected over here. Okay. So I have rye berries here. And it comes right away out of here. And so what we have here is basically a medium style over here, and you can get it. You can switch it all the way to the very fine milling setting over here. It takes a little bit of time, but if you're only going to bake two breads or one bread, you know, this is perfect for that. Okay? So if you are baking a little bit more bread over here, I think a very good idea is to bake enough for the whole week. You know, that way you have the oven on once, and then you get it all ready for that over here. Okay, this is work. Did it work with you, Peter? Yeah.
yeah,
So
that
anyway,
was great. Thank you.
So this is the Mock 200 over here, and if you can come with the camera over here. So we have the main drum right here in the middle, and the main drum over here has basically a setting, and the setting that you have here. I'm going to open this one up. You can see the milling stone. Open it up. Take this middle part out over here, and then you have the milling stone. Okay, one here and one there. So you have two little springs over here. You gotta make sure when you clean it, okay, you gotta put these, you gotta be careful with that, because you lose them, you need those springs here. So make sure that you don't lose them. Clean them up. I have a little brush over here that we use to brush them out over here. And I have also a little air in order to blow this out over here. All right, so what we're gonna do is now I put the second milling stone on top over here. And what we're gonna do then, we're going to start milling over here. So you put the second milling stone right there on top. Okay. And it kind of helps if you have some bigger berries over here. It helps a little bit to ease away that pressure over here. And then what I always do is I put the top part. It has like a little marker. And I have the marker. I start at the 5 o'clock. So if this is my watch setting, a clock setting, 5 o'clock. And then I'm going to go clockwise over here, and it should usually get between 5 and 6 o'clock. That's when it finishes. So now when I mill with this one, I have made some little markers already. This is nice and fine. This is nice and coarse. And so I'm gonna set it to my fine setting right here. I put the top on. And then right here on the side, you have also a little gauge. I have to put it up again because there is a little, I have to show it by the video, by the camera. You see that little round cylinder? It needs to really face to the left side or to the right side. Okay, so we put the, because it has to align with the diodes here. So that's why I put the cylinder right here. So we're putting this one on top. Here we go. And I put my metal stick over here, the little dial. I'm going to screw this one in. Okay, here we go. So now 1 till 10. I am going to have the fine setting, and I'm going to get to number 2 over here because I would like to have some fine fried flour. Putting this one right here. Make sure you turn the machine on first. You will see how much faster this one than the other one. Okay, here we go. I wish you could smell those fragrances. It's really, really, absolutely amazing over here. So fine, and we can actually get that a little finer. Sometimes what I do is I sift the bran out and just let the bran run through one more time to get it finer. But in all honesty, it doesn't have to be so super fine over here. I want whole grain, and we're going to make whole grain taste really, really good over here. So this is nice. This is how I usually get my flour from the local mill. All right. So I like this. I like this really for my rye bread. But if I have full-corn bread, I want my flour to be super coarse because in the morning I would like, just like Wolfgang Mock when he made his muesli, I want a muesli in the bread and I want it super coarse. So when I eat it, it takes a long time to digest. It takes a long time to get through my digestive tract, and it keeps me full. So I'm not going to be hungry and eating some snacking. I don't want that. So I made a little note right here. So I'm going to open this up a little bit. Nice. I'm going to make sure that the cylinder is right here facing where my dial is. And again, this is not like you have to do it like this. It's just the specifications that you like. And I show you later on some bread that I have baked with those specifications. And here we go. Okay, the bowl right here. Turn it on. Done. Okay, so you see, first of all, it goes really fast and much more coarser over here. And so keep in mind, this will not give you a lot of volume over here, and it will give you a bread that will give you a lot of nutrients, but it's going to be a little denser. And then we have the fine one over here. So when you mill, guys, what you have to put in consideration is that this flour gets warm a little bit. So if you are having your recipe where you're always using flour that you're already using, keep in mind that the flour that you just freshly milled is considerably warmer. So you're gonna cool it down, or you have to adjust your water accordingly. Mill it and maybe mill it for the whole week, maybe for 2 weeks, and then what you're gonna do is store it in the refrigerator, away from light. It deteriorates fast over here. It's usually 4 weeks. I wouldn't keep it longer than that. And the thing is, again, put in a bowl, put hot water on it, and then you see, does it smell pleasantly or you smell off flavors? there's some natural oils from the germ. And when you break them open, it starts to get rancid if it's exposed to warm temperature and light, just like nuts. If they're whole, you can store them a little longer. But once you start grinding them, you gotta use them. Okay, so that's what we have done with the mill. I put these over here, and I wanted to show you what are we gonna do with the mill. I'm sorry, what are we gonna do with the flour now? So I will get 2 recipes for Peter over here. So I have my vollkorn bread. So I'm gonna have my sourdough. I have a soaker. So the thing is, since the coarse flour is so super coarse, you have to soak it. So overnight. So I made this last night. I made the sourdough last night over here. Added a little bit of culture to it. It has a real nice aroma over here. And keep in mind, guys, if the flour is very coarse, you don't need that much sourdough. Okay? The finer the flour, the more sourdough you need to add over here, because there's much more enzymatic activity going on. And rye must have always some sour inside. Otherwise, you have a hard time making it. Okay, here we go. So what we're gonna do now, I'm gonna take a bowl, I'm gonna mix it real quick, and I'm gonna take this here real quick. And I'm gonna start mixing it by hand, because I just wanna show you if you're gonna have a bread that is having fine versus coarse. So here we go. My sourdough goes in it over here, and I mean the hydration. The hydration is we have as much water as we have flour. It's a high hydration, but there's too much water that has been absorbed. All right. If you would like to use the rye berries or wheat berries whole, you can't just soak it. You need to boil them. Okay, simmer them at least for half an hour, and then they're going to be soft. They're nice. You can put them in a salad. Actually, that's your way of smuggling in water into your bread over there. So you want to add more water, because as bread bakers, water is the cheapest of our ingredients. Our agenda is to make water sliceable and sell it as bread. So we are smuggling water in, and it tastes good. This thing of vollkorn bread just has a nice chew to it. When you have the bread, it's not, it goes and then it's almost gone. It has a nice flavor and a nice chew. Usually in a vollkorn bread or Danish vollkorn bread, you have sunflower. I like the sesame, slightly toasted, delicious. Okay, we're having whole rye. So I'm using the whole rye because now I'm mixing it. It has less time to swell up. So if I would use cracked rye, I don't think it would have time to absorb the water, and then a little bit of water. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna mix it over here. We're gonna mix it with our KitchenAid over here. And I'm just gonna do it real quick by hand to show you how this dough will look like over here. And again, slow mixing. Rye hates excessive mixing over here, because the water that has been absorbed over there is going to unravel, and that is irreversible. So slow mixing. And so think of the rye anyway as the original no knead bread. Remember the little snowman that I made over here? Did I knead that? I didn't knead that. Okay, right there. Okay, that's the original no knead dough. It goes together. It's rye is very humble, because what's going to happen is rye can grow on very harsh conditions, and it bakes. If you do everything right, it bakes well. So if you come with a camera real quick, I'm going to put it on the table real quick, and I'm going to put it in a bowl. This is your vollkorn bread, and I can add a little bit more water to it over here. But look at this. Look at this. All these grains that you have over here. Now, is this a muesli? Muesli in a bread. So the thing with this one is you can just imagine how long it would take to break down in your digestive system over here. And, it has a nice little, when you eat it, the chewiness is there. It's really, really pleasant over here. So, all right. So that's my vollkorn bread. We let it ferment. I have no yeast in it. There needs to be no yeast over there. I like the flavor of the freshly ground flour over here, the fermentation, natural fermentation. It doesn't need to be done. All right. That was the coarse one. Now what we're going to do, fine one, real quick. So the fine one is, okay, this one, a pre-ferment. I already made a pre-ferment too. And what I have here, if you can look inside, 50% of my rye flour is going to be fermented. And I'm whipping this one up. This is a foam sourdough. So it ferments for 3 hours. I'm adding, oh, the camera goes down. Got it? All right, so here we have a foam sourdough. And the idea with a foam sourdough is that when you whip it up, so there is basically 1 part of flour, 2 parts of water, and then I'm whipping it up to get a lot of air inside. And what happened with the air is that the air helps to feed a little bit the yeast, the natural yeast that you have inside, that this bread does not need any commercial yeast. That's a bread that we baked in Germany right after the war because there were no yeast factories, so we didn't have any yeast. So they used the foam sourdough method. So here we go, 50% rye is in it, 50% rye is right here, and the salt. So I'm going to put the rye in it. Here we go. And again, you can, did I add the water already? No. A little bit of water, 50 grams. And then we're mixing it by hand. And again, you don't have to use the mixer. You can mix this by hand over here, and the rye will come really nice together over here. So instead of having the wheat, you get the rye. 5 minutes is all I'm going to mix it over here. When you mix rye bread, it's very uneventful. You don't need to worry about, you don't really need to worry about gluten development because we don't have that here in rye. But the pentosan's absorbing water. So here we go.
If you didn't,
and we're going to continue for 5 minutes, and then we're going to ferment it for 1 hour, half an hour bulk fermentation, and baking it over here. All right.
If you didn't want to use your hand, could you use the paddle on the mixer?
Yes, I would use the paddle. If I have it here, I can use the paddle with this one because the hook doesn't really help. It comes together. Think of the little snowman over here, and but I would use the paddle. But if you only make 1 or 2 breads, use your hand for this really, really quickly. And the thing is, if you look at this one, you might say, oh my God, I can add more water. Be careful. Don't add too much water in rye. Rye absorbs water pretty quickly. If you add too much water, this crumb is later on so gummy and so moist, too moist over here. So start with what you have. There's nothing wrong with adding more water until you feel comfortable. But you will see rye is super, super moist already as it is over here. And again, those recipes will be all connected to the website that we have for our bread symposium. Okay, I think what we're going to do is now we're going to cut the finished bread to compare and contrast, and so we can see what the finished outcome is over here. And I'm going to get some of the breads that we have here.
While you're getting things set up to cut, can you just repeat quickly, how long did you ferment the dough, and then how long and at what temperature did you bake it?
Okay, so the Vollkorn bread has a bulk fermentation of 2 hours and a final fermentation of 2.5 hours. Okay, and then we baked it for 1 hour. And we have them right here. And I use gloves over here. The Vollkorn can also be put overnight in a refrigerator. Usually, rye doesn't like to be put overnight. Even though if you don't put too much sourdough, the sourdough will amplify overnight. It will get you a very strong, robust flour flavor. So if you put it in a refrigerator, it gets a little bit more sour. So if I have a bread that has, 30 to 40% rye flour and 60% wheat flour. I put it in a refrigerator. I still have 2 breads. We're going to bake them at the very end. All right, full corn first. So this is the full corn here that we baked yesterday. And you can see over here, I have 2 full corn, fine coarse. So,
and can you, for those who aren't familiar with the terminology, full corn broad is, I mean, that translates as whole kernel or whole grain, right?
So full corn means, sorry, I thought this is for the German audience here. So full corn means whole, and then corn means grain over here. Okay. So I always tell my students over there, full corn, think of Vulcan, live long and prosper. So eating full corn, you will live long and prosper. I just want to scale this out over here and show you. This is 900 something, 974, and this one here is 836. This is much lighter, but you see it has much more volume over here. And because whole grain milled fine, whole grain milled coarse. So I'm going to cut this now. So can we go a little bit closer over here? And you should see all the, I have sesame seed over here, and then all that really, oh my God, it smells very good. And you see how it is on the inside, nice and coarse. You know, you see all the nice little grains that are next to each other over here. And then the thing is, if you have this is, you see how my knife is a little bit gummy over here because I baked it last night. And so if you add more water, you will not be able to slice this because it's very gummy over here. But we can slice it. It has a nice little crumb structure over here. And if you sometimes bake this bread and you say, I can't wait, I must slice it now. Take a little bit of oil on your knife, a little bit of vegetable oil or olive oil, and then you can slice it and you don't have that problem over here. This bread should really sit for 24 hours. I baked it last night, but I can cut it over here. I need one of the knives that Peter has, you know, that he's going to give away next week over here. So this is the fine one. So fine one over here. The inside looks completely different. You see that over here? So it's up to you what you would like to have over here. Would you like to have coarse and you're eating that with cheese or just by itself? You're chewing it, it has a nice little bite to it, or do you like to have it fine? And 100%, it's a nice open crumb structure. And so sometimes what I do is on my soaker, instead of water, I'm putting apple juice on it. Oh my God, it tastes spectacular because you have rye and apple works really, really good together. All right, we got this. So this is going to be the Wolfgang Mock special. So because I really liked the muesli over here, we're going to have a muesli full corn bread. So here we added, I checked out my bake shop, what I have inside. I'll check this one out over here. This is, now this ball game right there. We have this in the morning over here. So I had some dried fruits over here, cranberries. I had apricots, some nuts over here. Woo, the color by itself is already good over here. And it's not like a bread slice that breaks apart and gets brittle over here. No, it's really nice big. And it smells really, really nice over here. So that is the course, okay, the course rye that I showed you. And, oh, real quick, we don't have to go and have to just make it square. We can make it round. And the reason we can make it round is, I had an empty can, put it inside, done. The thing is, you might say, oh, look at that. You might say, who's gonna eat that? How are we gonna, we eating other bread, we don't eat that bread. But the thing is, you may want to start, and sometimes if you have breakfast over here, maybe have a combination, yin yang. So when I was a kid and grew up, my mom said, before you eat anything else, full corn bread, because it will keep you full. You know, I have 4 brothers and sisters, so keeping them full was always a hard time. So what we made then, we had then our baguette or something like that, and we put it together. So if you have your full corn bread and you want to become a fan of it, but you say it's just too whole grainy for me. Maybe you're going to have a yin yang over here, And what you're gonna do is you're gonna get your, your bagel that you have every morning. You just eat half. Put this one right there on top. So now you start eating this over here, and you might say, "Oh my God, yin yang, all the good and evil if you don't like it, or evil, very good." And I tell you, eat that, maybe two. You're gonna be full all the way to dinner time, and you don't start snacking, and it's cheaper because you don't spend money on snacking time. All right, so here we're having 100% with the foam sour, and I like always how it breaks open. And then what I added over here, I added not 100% rye, I added 20% wheat flour over here. So because then it breaks open nicely, and we have a nice little 80% rye over here. And then you have actually a nice little open crumb structure too. I mean, reasonably for rye. And so 80%, 100%. Then we have in here 30%. 30% rye. I had it overnight, and I baked it this morning over here. So even overnight can be baked over here. But you can see, 80% rye, 30% rye. So, but it's good to have it overnight, especially if you have a bake shop and you want to have the bread throughout the day. So these are the different breads that we baked. So what we did today is, the idea is, when I tell my students, don't stop with bread. Don't stop with bread. Why don't you now, the students' challenge is to incorporate in their pastries. Okay, so in the breakfast pastries, in the entremets. When you go to a pastry store, the entremet, everything gets glorified. The single origin chocolate, the locally organic heavy cream, and then baked with some cookie dough. Hello, why is the flour not getting some credit over here? So we make some scones. Okay, here we go, and we have some rye scones over here, rye streusel. And the scones, we have it 50-50. So it's the gateway pastry over here. But we had some colleagues and some students eating them, and then whole grain scones. But oh my God, I think they were delicious over here and not dry at all. And again, the idea is, when you are eating certain products, and if you want to be having customers that are very happy, that the customer doesn't feel guilty of eating a dessert or anything. The customer should not go out, "Oh man, that scone was good, but how many steps do I have to make? How many pentalone or peloton what I have to do?" No, you're eating that and you feel, this was absolutely amazing. I feel good. I don't feel guilty. It's nice. It's energy for me. And you're doing something for your health with it. Fiber must be in your diet. No, there's no other way around it. Fiber helps you, absorbs water. It keeps your stool soft. And it helps you with the stool to go through your digestive system fast. We don't want it for a long time. It doesn't do very good things in your digestive tract. Fiber is also good for giving some beneficial bacteria that you need in your gut over here. So the thing is, sometimes we're dismissing it. However, at one point, the colonoscopy is coming. And there will be somebody will check something out over here. And it's like, you start now. It's never too early to start, and eat the apple with the skin, and eat bread that you don't have to eat the whole. Get your bagel, put a full-corn bread on it, and the whole life will be changed a little bit over here. In closing, I would like to just add a little bit more. It's not only flour that we can add over here. We can add over here coriander. If you like your bread a little spicy, don't put like a ton of caraway seed inside. We don't, this is, you're having probably a bad bread that doesn't taste good, and you're masking that bad flavor with caraway seed. A little bit over here. Coriander, toast it, add it over here. Old bread, add old bread up to 10%, toast it, put it up in your bread over there. It tastes good, it absorbs water, and we all wanna compost over there. Cut out the middleman, compost, put it back in the bread over here. And it's also really, really nice it helps you with not throwing so much food away, throwing too much food away, and not think of a perfect meal constellation over there. Black beans and rice over here. Okay, black beans and rice. You have your starch, you have your protein, and you have your protein from the beans over here. So if you're gonna take, I have some South Carolina. What do we have in here? There's these red peas over there. Yeah, these red peas over here. We're putting them inside, and you're having your constellation of starch that we have from the flour, and we're having some amino acids from your beans over there. And it tastes absolutely spectacular. We used to bake got some flour from Anson Mill that is really the puri crop. They actually grow very well together. You know, you have some of the peas over there that are growing along the rye, the peas putting nitrogen in the ground over there. It's a perfect harmony and it can be harvested together. But anyway, don't just think that grains can be milled over there. Okay, maybe you want to use some of the peas. Corn can be milled over here. Old bread, think of old bread. It tastes very, very good. And don't let the name fool you. All right.
You've covered an awful lot of ground. The questions are kind of pouring in. The loaves are spectacular. And thank you for making so many of them. I wish we were there to break bread with you and taste them.
We are fine that you're not here, because then I can give the students some here.
Yeah. And but since we have a few minutes left, let me look at some of the questions that have come in and throw them your way.
Yes.
Some of them are just questions that have to do with the difference between the two mills, the small 200 and the 300, and the speed. So some people were saying, yes, the one that fits on the KitchenAid is nice, but it's much slower than the tabletop version, and that's what you said as well, correct? And then you were talking also about the ability to grind from coarse to fine.
Yes.
You can do that with either type of mill, right?
Yes. And I used to order always a whole bunch of different courses for the flour. I had super cracked, I had cracked, I had finely cracked. So I have 5 different bins of flours. Now I'm just gonna get my medium rye, and I have rye berries, and then I mill them to my specifications. So it's much more user-friendly and much more efficient over here.
And another couple more questions before I have one for Paul coming up in a second, but can you please explain again, this is from one of our viewers, the foam starter. How is that? Because in the first bread, you did use a starter. You used, but it was thick and stiff. Then you used the foamy starter. Can you talk about
Okay, so in the interest of time, I had to kind of cut some corners. But so the idea with this one is that sometimes I want to bake, and then I'm having always a sourdough. Maybe you have it in the refrigerator too, and you're like, okay, I have time today. I can bake over here, but you don't have the sourdough ready. So what really helps is making a foam sourdough. So I have my culture, and what you're gonna do is the culture. You have your flour that you may be milling right now, or you had it milled, or you have whole grain flour. And what you're gonna do is you put your sourdough culture in your flour. And what you're gonna do is you want your sourdough ready in 3 hours. Okay, in 3 hours. And what you're gonna do is you are adding the water. So I'm adding 2 times as much water as I have flour. Adding it over here. Oh, I know I made a mistake. I should have get the sourdough and dissolve it first, but it will work. And then what you're gonna do is you're whipping it up. And what you're gonna do is you can put it in a machine too, but then I have to wash the whisk over here. I don't want to do it. So then we're whipping it up over here, and you want to add as much air as possible. And you're whipping it up until it has a consistency like a sponge cake, like a Genoa sponge cake over here. And it doesn't really take a lot of effort over here. So whip it up. Get some air inside. The water has to be 45 degrees Celsius over here. It's written in the recipe over here. It should be nice and warm. And you're whipping it up. And you will see it comes nice together. And the reason that we're going to do this one, I am much more interested in my yeast multiplication than having a very sour pre-ferment over here. So first of all, the aroma is very good. And then, so what I usually do is just like when you are making a sponge cake, I put my finger through it over here, and you should see the ditch that you are creating for 5 seconds. That's called the 5-second track. You know, so if you can see the little ditch that you create, then you have whipped it enough. So when you make a sponge cake, you have your eggs and your sugar, you whip it to a 5-second track, and then you fold in your flour and the butter over here. And that's what I do too. 3 hours, fermented, nice and warm. And then you add your flour, salt, no yeast, mix it nicely. And what happens is it smells really beautiful. And when you taste it, the bread is not so sour, because the thing is, I like rye bread. But if the bread is so sour in the morning, I just cannot get myself to have such a sour bread in the morning. So, and I want my rye bread in the morning for lunch and in the evening over here. So I need to have acidity inside, but not so much. And this is giving me a lot of fermentation, a lot of lift, but not too much acidity. Enough to keep the enzymes at bay and for aroma, but the yeast activity is more stimulated than the acid development.
Could you also use that starter in the first bread, in the Vollkorn broth, instead of the firm starter that you use?
No.
Are they interchangeable?
No, that's a good question. The reason that I cannot use this one is because the whole grain, they take all night to absorb the water. They take at least 12 hours because they are so coarse. So if I just whip up those coarse grains over there, they will not have time enough to really absorb water. So what's happening is you will have a bread that's very wet and not very cohesive because the parts have not really swelled up enough.
I see. Okay, thanks. A question for Paul. We've seen two mills today, the 200 and the 300. What if somebody wants to do more volume and they'd like to make it part of, like, say, a cottage bakery or something like that? Are you providing larger mills, or what would be your recommendations?
Yeah, well, really we have two types of mills. Those are the tabletop mills, of which there are 5 models, and and the attachment that we saw at the beginning. So the attachment is great, as Harry pointed out, for making just small quantities of flour and doing a little bit of milling, and we have thousands and thousands of happy users of those. The tabletop mills start with Mockmill 100 that will give you, like, the first 4 models up to 11 pounds of flour before needing a rest. So if you need to make, if you don't need to make more than 11 pounds of flour, you can buy either a Mockmill 100, which will do that in 50 minutes, or a Mockmill 200, which will do it in half the time. You know, if you'd like a wooden casing for those, you have a Mockmill Lino 100, a Mockmill Lino 200. And the only difference is how long it takes them to do those 5 kilos, that 11 pounds. For professional bakers who need to be able to get a lot of flour at once, the Mockmill Professional 200 will make you about 50 pounds of flour at a go, and that'll take it about 3 hours.
I see. So
you know, check the Mockmill website. You can see there's a good selection that explains that. But if you want to never have to worry about milling capacity, you know that you can get about 25 pounds of flour an hour out of a Mockmill Professional 200. That's a unit that I think is going to cost about $800 at this time. That's a lot of flour to be milling on your own.
right. Well, I'm just thinking, you know, for those folks who were really making a lot of bread, like 60 loaves or something like that. But
yeah, well, you know, there's people out there that make that flour that quantities. They just use several Mockmills, like you use several mixers. You know,
that's a good idea.
And that works really well. It still ends up being a much smaller investment than you'd have to make if you wanted to get a great big stone mill. And
Right.
above all, it's less investment in time. It's plug and play. You order it, it shows up, you line it up, you're making flour.
Good idea. We're about to run out of time, so I'll just mention for those who are watching, if you want more information on the mills themselves, go to the sponsor booth, go into our exhibitor hall and visit the Mockmill booth and leave them a note and ask them to get back in touch with you or go to the website, as Paul
Yeah,
said.
but I'd love to talk to anybody, and I can talk for a long time about these things. So please do leave me a message on the booth, and I'll be right back with you for sure.
Excellent. And for those who are going to be able to join us in the VIP lounge for our after party, Paul will also be able to join us. Although it's I know where you are. You're in Germany, right? So it's very late where you are. So thank you for staying up late for us. But we can carry on more chat, because a lot of the questions that came through came from people who already have a Mockmill and may have some user questions for you and things like that.
Great. I can't wait. I can't wait.
So
thanks very much to Harry for the great demonstration showing how we worked with how you can work with different milling grades and how you're in control of what you use. And I'm always delighted for his enthusiasm, and he's given me many good points on the value of Mockmill in the bakery. So I'm very grateful to him.
And those breads are really pretty inspiring to look at. Just as I'm looking at them across the table there. Thank you for doing such a great job, and congratulations also for after 3 months of being doing these symposium presentations. You are the first one to use the word stool. So
I'm not ashamed of that. Proud. It's important.
There you go. Because how can we be talking about digestive benefits without at least getting real about it? So
English is not my first language, so I have an excuse.
No, you did really good. So
Peter, you have to get used to talking about these things because it's real life. But I was, I was somebody who discovered only after I started working with Wolfgang and started baking my whole grain bread what it is to have normal toilet habits, because my whole life I was constipated. So I think there are things you need to tell people, because we all sit inside and suffer in silence, and a little bit of information can help us to a healthier lifestyle.
Yeah, and that's a big part of really the purpose of the symposium, among many tracks that we follow, is all about wellness, about microbiome, about digestive issues. So again, you're checking a lot of boxes off when we talk about this kind of baking. And so thank you. And since we often say that for symposium about the future of bread, even though these are like more ancient traditional methods, this really is a big part of the future of bread, is people making these kinds of wholesome, healthy breads that are beneficial for our gut as well as for our taste buds. So what we're going to do right now is we'll log off in a second, and Paul and Harry and I will log back into the VIP lounge. You should have another link, a separate link, both of you, for logging back in to go into the VIP lounge. It will be in that email you received earlier from Gurmit, and everybody else can navigate over to the VIP lounge where we will join you. I want to thank all of you viewers for being part of this today, and for those who join us later on the archives. There's a lot of information here. The recipes will eventually, as soon as Harry gets them to us, we'll put them into the recipe folder in the dashboard on the symposium site. So all of this will be at your availability. Okay, so I think I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye now. Thank you all again for being part of this. And I'm going to put my camera on real quick just to say goodbye. And Harry, thank you for a phenomenal demonstration. Lots of information, great information. Thank you, Paul, for explaining all this and for supporting the symposium as Mockmill has done over the last few symposiums. And we're proud to have you. We'll say goodbye here. Join us on Monday for a presentation on gluten-free. Next Wednesday, more demonstrations on baking on the grill. And I'll see some of you in a few minutes in the VIP lounge. Thank you again.
Thanks very much, Peter. Bye-bye.
Great. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you to our team behind the scenes. Our event technical and production partners, Ganoid Communications, including our producer, Gurmit Singh, and his team, Jida Gajaria, Gagandeep Singh, and Jaydev Kashari. Thanks also to Ted Nelson and Lael Fretzel of our creative and marketing team at Gumbo Marketing, and the many folks at Johnson & Wales University who supported me throughout this event. My executive assistant, Sarah Standifer, communications director, Melinda Law, Chancellor Mim Rooney, Charlotte Campus President Cheryl Richards, and our executive team leaders, deans, and faculty, Maureen Dumas, Michael Schrader, Michelle Nicholas, Mark Norman, Brent Steyerwalt, Laurie Heimbach, Jerry Lanuza, Amy Felder, Harry Peemoeller, Richard Miskovich, and many, many others. Thank you all.